Let's get to the politics of Germany right now, because Germany's Greens have picked Economy Minister Robert Habeck to lead them into February's elections. This as support for Chancellor Olaf Scholz from his party weakens further. Bloomberg understands some members of the SPD would prefer Defense Minister Boris Pistorius to lead the campaign. Let's bring in Bloomberg's Oliver Crook, standing by for us, of course, with the details. Ollie, how much support does Scholz then have at this point?
Yeah, well, listen, Tom, I think that it's a question that is evolving pretty quickly. I mean, this is the situation if you're the SPD and you're thinking about your sort of prospects going into this election. You have, on the one hand, an incumbent chancellor candidate who obviously has a lot of prominence, who has been leading the government. That may, in this case, be a huge disadvantage because he is a very unpopular candidate and is an unpopular coalition government that just collapsed. On the other hand, you have also one of the most popular politicians in all of Germany, not just in the SPD, in the form of Boris Pistorius, who has been defense minister. But for the time being, the support has been behind Olaf Scholz at the SPD level. But if you look on your screen there, you see it right there. Poll across the sort of the country within Germany, Boris Pistorius is favored by 66% versus Olaf Scholz. Only 18% of people think that he should be the candidate going forward. This will all come to a head on January 11th when they will formally elect choose who they will put up as the candidate. But going into this, you have to think about how potentially this thing played out in the United States, right, where you had an incumbent candidate for the Democrats in the form of Biden, who held on arguably for too long and then put in Kamala Harris at the last minute. That did not go particularly well. So there are going to be some kind of conversations about this going forward. And I would say there is a non-zero chance that Olaf Scholz is not the candidate going into this election.
A non-zero chance. Ripple effects, maybe at least some mirror imaging of US politics over in Germany. So maybe the clock is ticking on Olaf Scholz. Meanwhile, was this a curveball? This seemed to come out of nowhere, but maybe this was already being kind of planned and it was a long time in the works. But Olaf Scholz picking up the phone and putting a call through to Putin. What was behind that?
Yeah, so listen, Tom, I mean, we broke the story on Friday here at Bloomberg, and really it did come a little bit out of the blue, I think, to many people. I think judging from the reaction that we got from a lot of other leaders across the world, it didn't take everybody by complete surprise. Obviously, we heard from Zelensky saying that this call basically opens Pandora's box. But this is really, I mean, the real question is this, is Olaf Scholz, who has really shied away from being a sort of main character on the global stage, really being a protagonist, where has this guy been for the last 2.5 years, who's picked up the phone, talks to Vladimir Putin for an hour, and says that he's going to remain in contact? Obviously, there is the context of the election going on. Olaf Scholz has been trying to cast himself as a sort of non-escalatory figure versus Friedrich Merz, who has, for example, been saying that we should be sending long-range weapons from Germany to Ukraine so that they can use them freely. But there sort of speaks to the sort of contradiction that exists currently in trying to appraise how to deal with Russia with a Trump presidency on the horizon. On the one hand, the Europeans have consistently said there will be no decisions made about Ukraine without Ukraine. Yet, on the other, it may be forced out of their hands, and they're now facing the reality that if potentially they don't re-engage with Putin, they may be not at all in the conversation when Trump comes into office. And I think that that is the line that now Olaf Scholz has been trying to walk, though it's not clear exactly why he's the right person to have that conversation.